half a brain right now is going to go vote out the Democrats after what they've done to this nation. But it's going to be decided in the primaries. This is where we decide the future of our party. Pale pastels or bold colors, as Ronald Reagan once said. It's time to send some bold colors to Washington, D.C. Stop sending politicians. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, please.
Thank you, everybody who has come out and given up part of their day to learn about the race here in Southern Arizona for the next congressional representative in District 8. We all appreciate it. I know the campaign trail is a long and arduous one, and the fact that so many people like yourselves and around the country are willing to come out and put their time in and put their effort in behind the candidate of your choice, because you recognize, as we do, that the future, the very future of our country and the future of freedom rests on our willingness to do this, to put in time, to put in effort, to tell your friend, to walk neighborhoods, to knock on doors, to advance conservatism, to advance freedom, and to convince your neighbors that the time for sitting on the sidelines is no longer. I spent almost 11 years as active duty in the United States Air Force. I'm an A-10 instructor pilot at Davis Mountain now. I transitioned from active duty to the reserve almost exactly a year ago, and I announced my campaign to run for this seat. My beautiful wife Allison is sitting over here in the back, and I hope that if you haven't had a chance to meet her, you do before you leave. And of course I couldn't do this without her because, well, we have two little boys at home, Noah and Lincoln, and together they are like one big tornado. And so, no noise, right?
A little chuckle.
Okay. But people ask me why I'm doing it. Why would you run for office? Brutal. That's the reason. My wife, my family, my children, future. The future of freedom. Paid for in blood by so many Americans. And we need to hand down a better future to our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids than what we had. So I ask you to join me in this fight. My name is Brian Miller. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Payton, please.
I'm going to stand because that's about the only chance I am going to have today of being taller than Jesse. So, you know, I look out at the audience today and I know that there's a lot of veterans. Today marks two very important days. Today is Flag Day, but it is also the birthday of the United States Army. Do we have any soldiers in the audience today? All right. I fought, along with these guys, also fought for their country, and you know what? We don't recognize our country anymore by what's happening in Washington, D.C. We all know that. I have served in this community for the last 5 years, and I look out, I see a lot of familiar faces. I remember walking to Pete Davis's door off of Abrego. I saw Faye Bacon here today. I remember serving under her son-in-law in Iraq. I see Darren Venters. Together we work to eliminate the state income tax for active duty military pay in the state of Arizona together. You know, what this race is really all about is I talked to some young women not long ago. They were all stay-at-home moms. And each one of them talked about their families, they talked about their parents, their grandparents, and they all said that they had one abiding faith, that the following generation was going to have a better life than they did. But when I asked these young women if they believed that the same thing applied to them and their children, not one of them raised their hands. That is the death of the American dream, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that is. And this debate is going to be about deciding how we got into this mess in the first place and how we get out of it. I'm Jonathan Payton. I'm asking for your vote, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Everything looks to be running smoothly. Let's have the questioners begin, and let's have Mr. Stan Riddle, the president of the Green Valley Community Coordinating Council, ask the very first question. Mr. Riddle.
Thank you, Ray. First subject matter is the Rosemont mine, which I think everybody in this audience has some concerns with. I know I do. And the question's going first to Jesse Kelly. What's your position on the Rosemont mine, and why?
My position's exactly this, and I'll give you my personal opinion on this because I'm not a politician, so I'll actually be honest about it. But the United States Congress has nothing to do with this mine. Nothing. These people campaigning, I'm going to start the mine, I'm going to stop the mine. It's not true. It's in the hands of the Forest Service right now. If they make it through the Forest Service hands, it'll obviously be challenged instantly in the courts. If they make it through appellate court, it's a go. If they don't, it's not a go. And our Constitution expressly prohibits ex post facto laws, after the fact laws. So even if you're the most against person in the world running for U.S. Congress, if you're totally against that mine, you can't do anything about it. That being said, I know it's a controversial issue down here. I support the jobs and $900 billion in revenue to a state with a $3 billion budget shortfall. Because if these politicians have shown one thing, they've shown unless you give them the revenue through private enterprise, they're taking it with tax dollars. So that tax you saw on the ballot, there'll be plenty more of those unless we get some private wealth in this state.
Next will be Mr. Miller. Thank you, sir. Time starts. You want us to repeat the question?
Oh, I think I got it, thank you. I think the question here is how much involvement do we want the federal government to have in what is essentially a local issue? The Rosemont Mine project has been going through the regulatory and law hurdles that are required by it. And everybody should have their chance to speak as required by law. But as long as they continue to do it legally and they meet all the requirements, all the hurdles, all the public forums are held, I believe that it should go forward. The question is whether or not a congressman or congresswoman is willing to use political maneuvering behind closed doors in Washington to distort the laws that are already on the books. I took a long time to determine what the efficacy of the mine was. We went so far as to bring in independent mining experts to verify claims. And from what I see, the technology that they're using is quite astounding. And to that end, the environmental restrictions and the environmental concerns have been met and bonded with insurance. And should the property rights of my fellow Americans, ever be violated by this mine, I will lead the charge to rectify the situation. But until that happens, as long as the law is followed and the regulations are met, the mine should go forward. Thank you.
You know, I listened for 4 minutes and I still don't know really what their positions are on the mine. Those are some establishment politician answers, I can tell you right now. We know in this state, and we know in southern Arizona, something very familiar. Whiskey's for drinking and water is for fighting. And the bottom line is that the citizens of southern Arizona want to make sure that they're still going to have their water rights intact at the end of the day. You want to know what my stance is on the mine? I'll read it to you. This isn't from me. We had a solicitation that went out for people that asked what my stance was going to be, and we asked for contributions from people. And I don't know all the people that the mailers go out to, but I got this response. I cannot support Jay Payton so long as he opposes the Rosemont project. Bad call on his part. Signed, Jamie Sturgis, UP Rosemont Copper. Do you wonder now what my position is? The bottom line is I will never sell out your water rights as your state representative, as your state senator, and certainly not as your congressman. Thank you very much.
We're on the next question, which will be asked by Jim Parisi, and we'll start with Brian Miller.
Thank you. I'm lucky enough to have Arizona immigration law SB 1070. This recently passed legislation, gentlemen, has resulted in national and international attention here to Arizona, drawing both praise and rebuke for its enactment. Starting with Brian, what is your opinion of this law and its impact on our state?
I believe that SB 1070 is an unfortunate necessity. It is unfortunate because the federal government has the responsibility to protect the borders, to protect from invasion, to secure our borders. But they have refused to do their job as a result of weak-kneed and spineless politicians, I believe, who want, on both sides of the aisle, who want this problem to continue. because it's an emotional issue, because it's an issue that politicians can